Namaste, everyone. This is Vidal, Maheshananda. And tonight, for our satsang, I'm going to discuss the balance of activity and mindfulness. A very, very powerful topic in the yoga traditions, because both activity and mindfulness go together like the opposite sides of the same coin. They're meant to be integrated into our lives in a perfectly balanced way, because these are two different but very important aspects of our life. Karma deals with our actions, the outer world, and all of the things that we need to do on a practical level, on a day-to-day basis. These two principles are profound because they promote the ideal balance that we're all looking for. And this balance is between the mind and the body, between the head and the heart, and on a more expansive level, it is the balance between spirit and nature. Activity, or all actions, is referred to in yoga as karma yoga. And knowledge, the path of wisdom, understanding, and mindfulness comes from Jnana Yoga. Action has many forms. Physical actions, as I just mentioned, mental activity, our thoughts, emotions that are triggered by thoughts, and also our words, our language, the quality of our speech, the vibration in our voice, and the tone of our voice. So activity is a higher form, is referred to as seva. And this is where the Sanskrit word save, spelled S-E-V, seva, gave influence to create the word service, S-E-R-V-I-C-E. The difference is that when we begin to embrace and acquire the attitude of service to humanity, selfless service, it is completely void of egoism. It is void of any personal motive or desire. That's what's beautiful about seva. We're doing it because of the pleasure that we get in improving the lives of others, because it takes us away into an open and vast space of awareness that is far beyond I am doing this, the ego, or any type of gratification. We aren't aware of it. There's no measure of the benefit we're getting when we're doing seva or practicing selfless service. And Swami Shivananda emphasizes this in that the path to mindfulness, the spiritual path, whatever you want to call it, to developing this type of awareness, this type of consciousness, begins by helping others, by cooking for others, by offering your time, your skills, your wisdom, your knowledge, whatever you can to support and benefit another. So this is how profound this teaching is. So karma yoga can also be defined as the art of listening to the world, the capacity to listen to what the world is telling us. What do I mean by that? Well, the world is speaking to us because we're projecting it. We're creating the outer world. And so there are hidden messages, there are insights into our lives and aspects of our shadow mind. This means the subconscious mind that we're not aware of. Most of the subconscious mind we are unaware of. Otherwise, we would heal ourselves very quickly and move directly towards liberation, enlightenment. But this shadow aspect, or the moon aspect of the mind, is the inner aspect of our being, the innermost intimate aspect of our lives that we don't share openly with everyone. We share these very personal aspects with perhaps our parents, our partners, husband, wives, friends, close friends. Why? Because they reveal something that you are not fully aware of. It reveals an aspect of yourself that you're trying to understand, that you're trying to clear through, so that we can get beyond these clouds, if you will, these thoughts, these emotions that inhibit our capacity to be completely transparent, to be completely open, to be completely in the heart, emanating from the heart, wholeheartedly. And this is the most profound aspect of this teaching of balancing activity and mindfulness. It ultimately depends on our relationship with the heart. This is the cultivation ultimately of compassion. Compassion is a word that is inclusive of all living things. It simply means that we have gone beyond the self-created obstacles, our own mental conditions, patterns, in Sanskrit referred to as samskaras or vasanas. So it's removing these and arriving in this very connected place of feeling. In Sanskrit tradition, there is a beautiful term that is a balance of basically two things. It is positive attitude, cultivating an optimistic attitude, blended with feeling. Positive attitude comes from the higher mind, the mind that is clear, that is transparent, that is connected to the heart. This higher mind exists in everyone. It is not some special part of the mind that only certain individuals have. Everyone has access to this higher mind. And we simply embrace bhavana, a blending of feeling with positive attitude, and it nurtures that relationship between head and the heart. So a lot of people are aware of the term karma, referring to be careful, a caution around what we're doing. So the term is being used in many different ways, as is the term mantra and guru, yoga, and we're in many ways bastardizing these terms because we're using them to mean and to define very mundane things, very worldly aspects of our life, but yet these terms are profound and they mostly relate to the divine life, the higher life, the life that we're all looking for, the life that we're aiming to attain and create. So karma has three types. The first type is called prarabdha. Prarabdha is the result of all our previous actions. So it's like an encasement of all your positive and negative influences that have been practiced and repeated so many times over multiple lives, multiple embodiments, that this form of karma is unchangeable. What I mean is that it is unchangeable in the sense that when you become aware of it and you say, okay, I'm going to change this, it doesn't change. And you recognize that it keeps coming back, even though you keep making an effort to change it. It repeats itself throughout an entire lifetime. So these types of karmas require, as I said, multiple births to distinguish. And as you grow in your mindfulness, you become more aware. You become more resilient or determined to change this type of karma. Now, it doesn't mean that it won't eventually change, that you won't eventually overcome this karma. It just means that because you created it over many, many repetitions over many, many lives, it takes more to reverse it. It takes more to change it. So each time you make an effort to be mindful, to recognize it, and to put it aside, to not let it always interrupt your life. And especially our responsibilities that we have to our family, to our own health and well-being. We have to push it aside. We're not saying ignore it. We're not saying to avoid it. We're just saying recognize it and don't let it become you and overcome your life. So, we become so committed, once we recognize these, to change this karma, because we know it is the most chronic. It is the most difficult, but yet the most rewarding to change and to evolve from. The second type of karma is called sanchita, and has the vibrational consistency of the subtle body. This means the energy body. And it has much to do with mental patterns, habit patterns that are expressed through various qualities of the mind, through various aspects of our emotions. So sanchita, although these are the karmic patterns that lie dormant, right? They're in a kind of a storage bank, so to speak. They're waiting to manifest. We all have them. We all have loads of these karmas. We don't know what they are. We don't know exactly when they're going to come up, although the astrology birth chart does give us indications depending on various cycles as we see these cycles coming up, whatever they may be. Mars or Saturn cycles are very common to bring out more chronic and challenging karmas. They are all dormant in us. And these are changeable because they are more subtle in a way. They're not as impressed and ingrained in our energy bodies. When we refer to the energy bodies, there's two aspects to this. In brief, I won't discuss this fully in this satsang, but the first is the three bodies: the physical, the mental or astral body, which is the mind, and then the soul. So it's the deepest aspect of our existence. The other has to do with fine layers of energy. These are called koshas. And these layers of consciousness feed us, feed our entity. We feed our body on a certain level. We feed our mind, right? We feed our intelligence. We feed ourselves on the deepest level with love. So there are various levels, if you will. And so the sanchita karma, and these karmas are changeable. When they come up, you may notice them in different aspects of our life, and you make an effort to change them through various techniques or affirmations, mindful awareness, and slowly you see them dissipate. Slowly you see them disappear. So again, the sanchita karma are the karmas stored in our storage bank, karmic storage bank. They're not as deep, they're not as ingrained as the prarabdha karma, which, as we discussed, those are the ones that really take time. Many, many births, perhaps. Much, much effort, the grace of the guru, and good, positive environment to change those. The third karma is called kriyamani and reflects the karmas that we create in this life. Yes, that means you can create positive karmas in this life that promote evolution, that promote well-being, that promote happiness, balance, that support natural laws, right? So we can choose to create actions and perform our actions in thought, in word, and in our deeds that support our evolution, that support our growth and well-being. Or we can create more bad karma. Sorry to say, but it is likely that most of the world is still creating negative karmic impressions for themselves. We are still living in a world where most people are walking with a blindfold on, trying to understand what the world is, depending much on science and intellect, superficial intellect, to try and make sense of what life is and how they should live the best life. But there is much more to life than what we see today. And as Krishna said in his famous, one of his many, many famous quotes, of 1,000 that will find me, only 100 will follow me, and of the 100 that will follow me, only one will ever know me. This gives you an insight into how few are blessed with an awakening. Some tinge, some sprinkle of something beyond this world. An insight, a query into a domain that is so profound, that is within us, that is beyond time and space, that is beyond science. That blessed experience is rare, and it should not be taken lightly. As the great Ramakrishna often says, you said, and this was quoted in his gospel, this wonderful story of his life, run. When you have that little bit, even that little tinge of what is this world? Who am I? What is the purpose of my life? Chase it like your hair is on fire and you're running for the pond. The path to spirituality, repeatedly in the great teachings of Ramakrishna and Yogananda and the Buddha, there is often an importance on urgency. Do not take for granted. Do not put it aside for later, for a better time, when the kids finish college, when there's enough money in the bank, when whatever it is, you know that story, that narrative could go on and on and on and on. And it does, and it has. So we have to recognize that when we begin to take those first steps on the path to mindfulness, to compassion, to balancing activity with this grand awareness, it is a very auspicious moment in our life. It is often a very memorable experience. It is something we never forget. It is that turning point in our life. It is that moment when we're looking in another direction and then suddenly our life is turned completely the other way. So, as you grow in your understanding that karma is what you manifest and what you have manifested, this hopefully encourages us to begin to become more responsible, more contemplative of our life, our choices, our intentions, so that we begin to blend a higher attitude, a more optimistic attitude with feeling. This balance of bhavana, so vital, so sacred. So the Upanishads, which are a great commentary, if you will, are sort of a series of culminative poems that aim to define the end of the great Vedic era, which spanned thousands of years in India. The Upanishads talk about the three knots of the heart. And it says, this is from the Katha Upanishad, when all the knots of the heart are resolved, then this mortal human being attains immortality. This is the eternal teaching. So the three knots of the heart that this scripture, this verse is referring to are first avidya, or what is known as ignorance. Ignorance is the first knot. It is the first obstacle, the first knot, something that is tying us to time and space, to the cycle of samsara, birth and death, as the Buddha referred to. It's like a wheel, right? This wheel. And in order to get off the wheel, get off the wagon, as we've heard in that expression, we have to first and foremost remove ignorance. What do we mean by ignorance? Well, simply stop ignoring that there's something more important in your life and in the world than the path to mindful living. Is it really more important to work more for the aim of attaining more materialism? Is it really more important to watch another hour of news or read a very biased description about a certain issue or event in our society. Question those things, because the senses are so powerful. They pull us outward. They're constantly yanking us away from our true self, the pure self. This is the beginning to integral humanism. When we begin to remove the veil of ignorance, the veil of Maya, the illusion that the world is real. When we begin to remove the idea, eliminate the idea that the world is my priority, that the world is the most important thing. Again, we're not saying that we cannot learn from the world, not at all. The world is a great teacher to us. But we have to balance the amount of time, effort, and value that we give to the world, the outer domain, the sensory world, the material world, time and space dynamics. Second knot is referred to as desire, kama. We have to distinguish and differentiate between a desire and a need. And as we do in those moments in our life when we say, listen, is this a desire that I have to buy this, to go there, or is it a need? Is it a higher calling? Is it something that is expanding my sense of self? Is there something worth exploring here? So we have to differentiate between the desires in our life and the needs in our life. And what you'll find when you do practice that, you begin to give less power, less energy to our desires. Because ultimately, the soul, the self, you're the essence of pure consciousness that is within you, doesn't require anything from the external world. Ultimately, it's only yearning, which some may say, well, isn't that a desire, to yearn, to return back to that pure consciousness, to return back to, I would say that's not a desire, but rather that is a need of humanity. We're all waves in the ocean, and we're all trying to recognize that we're not separate of the ocean. It is our home. It is where all life comes from, and we all share it equally. The third knot is karma, our actions, and all that I just spoke about. So when we remove these, we can begin to balance activity and mindfulness. Swami Jyotirmaya Maheshananda says, ignorance gives rise to desires. Because when we support ignorance by ignoring our true purpose, our desire to enjoy the outer world, the illusory objects of the world, increases. this is a perpetual cycle that is so difficult to change. We have to be very cautious, we have to be very careful, and turn away from these desires by simplifying our lives, by enjoying the beauty in simplicity, the beauty in cooking, the beauty of spending time in nature, under trees, of observing animals in nature, and the splendor of so many aspects of life. So, this is the Karma Yoga, and I want to now spend a little time explaining to you and sharing with you the importance of the Jnana Yoga. This is the yoga of mindfulness, the yoga of knowledge. And this type of yoga can be defined as the art of learning from the world. Because when we begin to listen to the world, we can also learn from it, because the world becomes our teacher. The world becomes our guru, in a way. It becomes our living Buddha. The term Buddha comes from the word buddhi, which refers to the higher mind, to the intuitive mind, the aspect of the mind that I recently spoke about that is without blemish. It is beyond desire. It is beyond emotion. It is, in some ways, emptiness, nothingness. It's hard to define this space because it is so vast. It is limitless. It is eternal. And it breeds tremendous contentment. So on the path of mindfulness, or is referred to in yoga as Jnana Yoga, we need to remove 3 obstacles. Okay? Sanshaya bhavana, and this is defined as doubts about the validity of the spiritual teachings, the spiritual truth, that there is one truth. So we first have to remove doubt that the spiritual path, the path of mindful living, is real. It is essentially the essence of life. It's the purpose of life. The second obstacle to this mindfulness is referred to as asambhavana. The feeling, or a feeling, that your own attainment or capacity to reach illumination is impossible. We have to remove that doubt. We have to understand and embrace the truth that enlightenment, illumination, nirvana is real. That potential is there for everyone, especially those that have had that blessed awakening, that, as I mentioned, that little tinge of where is my life going? What am I doing? Am I really enjoying this life? Am I living in a reactive world and just repeating action after every action and reaction and back and forth? Is this my life? So, we need to remove that and stop the negativity that we cannot attain nirvana, at least in this life. And the last obstacle is viparita bhavana, a mistaken notion of reality. That means that we must understand that the world is not real in the sense. It is not what we need to be happy. It is illusory. It is a projection. It is always changing. It is inconsistent. And it's mystical. It's hard to grasp. Sometimes the oddest things happen, and we can't explain it. We don't understand it, where it came from. This is the truth of the world. This is the mistaken notion of reality. So, this path of balancing activity with mindfulness is profound, and it leads us to a remarkable place. And one of the primary factors to changing these obstacles, whether it's the 3 knots of the heart or the obstacles that I just mentioned to growing in our mindfulness, we have to arise beyond the constant habits. We have to begin to change our habits. And the simplest way to do this is to start one by one. As my counselor often said to me, don't put them all up on a sheet of paper and stare at them and expect that you're going to change them all at the same time. That's quite a feat. And it can be very overwhelming, right? When we start to write down all the things that we want to change about ourselves, that could be quite scary. So, one by one, put a Post-it up. I will think more positive. I will say positive things. I will do more. And practice this first and foremost with affirmation. Repeating what you want to change. Repeating what you want to create. Because when you repeat something, you're creating a positive impression in the mind. That positive impression, as a thought, it could be a visual, begins to change the brain. It begins to fire new neurons in the brain. And the brain begins to activate itself in a new way. And these 3 aspects of our brain, the frontal lobe, which is linked to the sun, the lower or reptilian part of the brain, which is in the hind part of the head or skull is connected to the earth and to our most primary aspects of life, preservation, food, right? The body. And so the reptilian brain's connected to the earth. And then the midbrain, or what we refer to as the emotional, the amygdala or moon brain, is connected to the moon. And so as we practice affirmation, as we practice positive intention, and blend this attitude with feeling, with compassion, with a sense of, I'm doing my best. I'm trusting that in time, with detachment, with surrender, things will evolve, things will change. The best of myself will arise. So it really depends on us and that mental attitude. And we balance that on a moment-to-moment basis. Now, the other aspect of this, which I often speak about, is the importance of our environment. You can run through your head the greatest of mantras, the greatest of affirmations, but unless that karma is there to support you, it is difficult for anyone to overcome a negative environment or people that don't aspire to change, to evolve. Our mind can be our greatest asset if it's mindful, if it's connected to the heart, if there is a surrender and a trust and a compassion for all living things. However, when the mind is clouded with illusion, delusion, without any idea that this world is not real, that we don't have an equal and fair chance to evolve, to attain illumination, all of these things can really hinder us in a tremendous way. So we need that environment to support us. We need the people. We need nature. These are needs, right? These are things that will elevate us. The soul works in this way. It is like a magnet. It attracts whatever it emanates. Now, if the soul's light and vibration, which is love in the most profound sense, is being blocked by desire, by ignorance, by a lack of trust or hope that enlightenment is real, then it is difficult. It is very, very difficult to grow in our illumination. So we have to bring these principles into practice, into our life, and do it little by little. Don't expect that you're going to run from an office building to an ashram every day with people singing divine chants and silently glancing at you with a twinkle of light in their eye. It's not realistic, but we can begin to create homes and home environments that are sacred, that have altars, that bring some connection to plants, to nature, light, and expose yourself to these elements, to these forces of nature which are within us. So it's natural for us to bond with them, with these elements outside of us, and develop a synchronicity, a connection to them, so that we have Divine Mother's support. We have the support of nature, the most powerful force, Prakriti, the womb of creation. That's what this world is. It is the womb for all life. It is the mother's womb, just as the womb we come out of as a child into this beautiful, beautiful earth. So, balancing activity with mindfulness. It is a lofty goal, but it is so ideal, and it can be so practical to help us in all aspects of our life. Balancing karma, balancing knowledge. Know why you do things. Understand why you're doing a certain practice, why you're performing a certain exercise. Learn about it. Gain deeper meaning behind what you are doing, so that your action and all of your practices carry a deeper meaning and a more profound capacity to transform our lives. Simply doing the right thing is very helpful, but when we blend it with mindfulness, blending that positive attitude with feeling, with connection to the heart, it leads us to living a more harmonious life, a more peaceful life, and gaining greater contentment from the simple things in life, the beauty of nature and the entire world. So this concludes our Satsanga. I want to thank you all and encourage you all to continue to absorb positive impressions whenever you're down, whenever you're questioning the purpose of your life, whenever you feel an obstacle come up. Turn to Satsanga. Listen to the great knowledge of these traditions and allow your mind to reflect, to explore, and to discover the greatness that exists within us, within our hearts. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste and pranams to all of you. Blessings.